Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Chat with Ryan Frank. So glad that you are here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, podcast listeners. Good morning, YouTube. Wherever you're catching today's coffee chat, I'm glad that you are here. So thankful for all of you. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Those of you on Facebook, leave a comment and tell me where you're joining from today. I love seeing that we have listeners from all over the world. I think it's encouraging to all of us to see this in the comments. So leave a comment, please. Tell us where you're joining from today. Looking forward to today's coffee chat. We're going to talk about post-COVID best church practices and how's the church going to be better once we get through COVID. We're going to be talking with Dr. Ron Hunter from Randall House. Also going to be joined by Dr. Colleen Derr. Colleen is the president of Wesley Seminary. She's also a dear friend to Beth and I, and a great ministry partner. We're going to talk about communication. I'm excited about this conversation as well. So thank you for joining me. If you're just logging in and you're on Facebook, please leave a comment. Let me know where you're joining from. I've got to tell you, I get pretty jazzed whenever there are new downloads that hit kidsmatter.com. But when this game that you see on the screen right here, Look the Other Way, when that was submitted to the Kids Matter channel for submission, I got pretty excited about it. It is a fun game. I think it's probably one of the most engaging games that will bring the energy level of your room up that we've had in several weeks. I'll probably mention it in an email that we send everybody tomorrow, but I want you to take a peek at it. It's right here on the homepage. It's called Look the Other Way. Now, here's how this game works. What you want to do is there are, let me see here, 7 different rounds of play. It's an on-screen game where the kids follow on screen and they have to do the opposite of whatever the person on the screen says to do. So if the voice on the screen says look up, they have to look down. If it says right, they look left. If it says left, they look right. I've been playing this with my girls at home, and I've got to tell you, they are addicted. It's a lot of fun. It's a crowd breaker video. Here's how the game works.
Right, down, up, down, up, down, right, down, left, up, right, down.
And that's it. How fun is now? It gets really addictive. I wonder if you try to do it with me. Because it's a funny brain game how that works, how you want to do what the screen says, but mentally you have to shift fast and you have to do opposite, and every round gets faster. Isn't that fun? It's a great crowd breaker game. It's a great way to kick off your kids' church, your Wednesday night. It's called Look the Other Way. Andrew Brooks created this game for the kids in his church, and just like 90% of the other downloads at kidsmatter.com. These are all things that kids pastors have created for the kids in their church, and they are sharing them and they're to the Kids Matter community. So thank you, Andrew Brooks, for that great game. One more time, it is called Look the Other Way. Look the Other Way. Ron Hunter is going to join us while Ron jumps online. I hope that you have your coffee with you. And if you have a question or something that you want to talk about, what I want you to do is I want you to text the number on the screen right here, 833-792-6372. Facebook, leave a comment and let me know where you're joining from today. Good morning, Ron Hunter. How are you, friend?
Good morning, Ryan. Doing very well. Hope you are. What a good way to get started with the game.
How did you do? Did you get them all right?
You know, the first 3 or 4 I was tracking, and then I started going all the wrong ways. It was ugly. I'm glad nobody was looking. I'm glad I was off camera, too.
No, we were actually recording. Did you have your
Okay.
camera off?
Yeah, that'll be the blooper reel later, I'm sure.
Blooper reel.
Yes,
Blooper reel.
yes.
Ron
No.
Hunter is the publisher. He is the president of Randall House. And Ron is a great thinker. He is a brilliant thinker, a great communicator, but yet he just is a down-to-earth guy. And I am so glad to call him a friend. Now, if maybe you're not familiar with the name Randall House, I bet you're familiar with D6. A lot of you have attended the D6 conference. A lot of you use D6 curriculum at your church for Sunday school or kids worship. And maybe you have read a book that's been published by Randall House or D6. The ministry of Randall House just continues to blow my mind at how they are effectively connecting with the church and resourcing the church. And they do things with such excellence. So Ron, thanks for joining me. I'm so glad you're here today.
It's so good to be here. Thanks. And to be in here with good company like Dr. Colleen, wow, just an honor to be here with you.
It is an honor. I was walking around the office this morning saying that I'm flying in some high clouds today in the coffee chat with Ron Hunter and Colleen Derr. Ron, I first became acquainted with Ron Hunter because somebody said, you need to buy this book. And I bought this book, and it had these pictures on the front of toy soldiers and a Rubik's Cube. And it's called Toy Box Leadership. Now, I didn't know Ron Hunter from the Man on the Moon. I was a children's pastor. I was intrigued by the title. I read the book, and Ron, I don't know if I ever told you this or not, but I actually took like 6 months of teacher training at my church, and we would do a different toy every month, and I would teach this leadership stuff from your book. And then I feel like it wasn't for a couple years later that you and I actually met. By the way, I don't know if that book is still published, but it is a great book.
It is still published. It's still selling well. I'm amazed at how it's used. We wrote that with the intent of making leadership theory very simple, and yet it's been taught at universities and required reading by faculty and student leadership. I've just been amazed at how God has used that book.
It's really neat. I think it's brilliant the way you approached it, Ron, because it's a small book. It's not real thick and scholarly. It's in what you might call an easy read.
That's right.
But it is packed with just some great leadership nuggets. And I love every chapter is a different toy. Like, give us an example, Ron. What's one of the toys? It's been a few years. Give us an example.
Yeah, well, it shows the history of every toy. For example, one of my favorites in there is on mentoring, and the toy is Play-Doh. So we talk about the history of Play-Doh and how it was actually used as a wallpaper paste for hanging wallpaper.
No.
And somebody invented this.
I forgot that.
Made it safe for kids. And now when we shape Play-Doh, it's the same way we look at finding mentors who will shape our lives. And so that's one of them. The other toys in there, like Slinky Dog, vision is the key principle there. And the leader stretches the organization, and then the back end needs to catch up. And the leader can't get too far ahead of the whole organization.
That's good.
There's Rubik's Cube. There's 10 toys throughout the book. And I think every one of us can identify not only with the toys, but the leadership principles within there.
I love it. Now, Ron and I aren't necessarily, although we could definitely keep talking about this. I'm not talking about Toy Box Leadership as much, but listen, Kidman community, if you're not familiar with this book, get on Amazon or go over to Randall House and pick it up, because it's a great book. And if you're looking for just a good leadership development book for you, or thinking, man, what should I do as my team is coming back to really develop my team, this is a great book you need to consider. It's just called Toy Box Leadership. Now, Ron, you're a student of the church. Yeah. And you're always keeping your ear to the rail on what's going on with pastors and ministry leaders, not just in children's ministry, but all over the map. What kind of practices do you think the church has picked up, or what have we learned through this pandemic that if we continue practicing these things, it's going to help us be better?
Yeah, it's interesting. I am absolutely looking for those lessons learned. When we look at biblical examples of items like Joseph in the Old Testament being sold off to Egypt, and we find, we wouldn't have that great redemption story of God using Joseph to save the nation of Israel had the bad things not occurred in his life. we wouldn't have the books of Ezra and Nehemiah had the beautiful city of Jerusalem not been decimated. And yet we find that redemption story. And I believe that COVID is going to provide us some similar redemptive stories that we're going to see. One of them, Ryan, I think is kind of elementary. When you are a student of leadership, there are a number of studies that show that some of the most significant leaders in the world today had really tough challenges early in their career or ministry, meaning they overcome major defeat or adversity, really rough times. And those are the character developing. Those are the areas where we learn from experience. It's interesting, Dr. Colleen Derr is on here with us, because one of the illustrations I use often is whenever I get back a graded paper when I was in school, and now I'm the professor, I do adjunct work. And when I got my papers back, I noticed all the red marks. And those are the items I remembered moving forward, not what I got right. And COVID is going to be that reminder of some of the lessons we learned that were hardships and things that we didn't get so right that they're going to stick with us moving forward. So hardships are not speed bumps, but they're textbooks, is the way I'd like to phrase that one. That's just one of them. There's several others we could dive into.
That is good. Hardships are
not speed bumps, but textbooks.
Not speed bumps, but textbooks. I love that. Give us another one. Yeah, sure.
The other one that I think that was tossed around by a number of people, and so it's hard to assign credit to it, is that whenever March occurred and we had the safe at home and we kind of had to, so to speak, lock down. Well, here's the deal. The church left the building. The people didn't leave the church. And we got this stark reminder as ministry leaders that the church happens in community. And while we were not able to gather, our research has shown that many of the churches continue to thrive financially and on Zoom, meeting together in small groups. And if ever there was an opportunity for D6 ministry, the Deuteronomy 6 principles, where moms and dads look for intentional connection moments in the home, COVID has been it. This is a chance for moms and dads to step up and answer those why questions in the home and be the church. And I get that a lot of our pastors really missed preaching, but boy, they stepped up and started pastoring. No, they didn't start pastoring. They thrived in their pastoral ministry,
that's a good point.
Even though they couldn't preach. Many of them were great pastors, but I think they're going to be even better pastors relationally moving beyond COVID.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Isn't it something, Ron, you talked about this a minute ago, how forever, for a decade or more, and especially in the children's ministry community, we've talked about family ministry. We've talked about partnering with parents. We've toyed around with what's it look like. And this COVID, it really forced us into family ministry, didn't it?
It did.
We've got to figure this out.
That's right. It's a good time if you're a stockholder in Zoom, to be in this environment.
There's my word. Yes,
other industries that are thriving right now, the router system. But it's also a good time to be championing family ministry and generational discipleship, because there's a lot of bad happening in the homes. I'm thankful the news media has not ignored the fact that people that are in abusive relationships, those probably got worse during this time of stress and so forth. But it's also an opportunity, like we talked about biblically, when negative things happen, to step into the moment. And isn't that what God has called his people to do, is to step into moments like this and not be afraid, not to be scared, but to literally realize that, spiritual formation is lived out daily, not celebrated weekly. That's the biblical worldview. And these are the times we've got to start answering those why questions that each of us are having, whether adults, teens, or kids. We've got to be able to give them a biblical perspective in the midst of this chaos.
I love that. Ron, you talked about family ministry and generational discipleship.
Yeah.
If we could hang there for just a second. I think if you've been in Kidman for very long, you've heard the phrase family ministry, and I think conceptually you get it, church and family working together. Generational discipleship. Ron, is that the same thing or is that different?
Here's why I like the word generational discipleship. It is descriptive of family ministry, but sometimes family ministry comes with this baggage of, man, our families are broken. Our families are dysfunctional. And we like to say, family ministry doesn't mean what people often automatically think of when we say that word family ministry. It's not the perfect two parents, two kids, a dog, and a picket fence. Sometimes there are divorced parents. Sometimes there's broken families. Sometimes there's kids without spiritual parents. Even when they're in church, by the way, they can still be spiritual orphans. So the idea of family ministry is broader than most people say. And by adding the words generational discipleship, what it says is that every generation, we care about every age and every season. And so there are seasons of life we go through, and we can help each other peer to peer, but we can also reach and help the age following us. And the younger age can actually help coach even the ones that are older than them. And that's what generations are about. I can't stand this, man, you guys are going to bleep me out on this whole thing. The people reading the Bible regularly that are the most boring for most people, other than Leviticus, is probably the genealogies. I mean, how many love reading those long names that, we have to do, tongue gymnastics to pronounce correctly. But God left them in there because every generation mattered. And every one of those names was an influencer on those who followed, and he was showing the trajectory of the family. That's still true today. We are who we are because of our parents and our grandparents. And we as ministry leaders need to exercise the due diligence of that influence, and do not expect that 1 hour a week in church will get it all done. 1 hour a week is the launching pad. It's the on-ramp. And then we've got to get parents and grandparents and others who will lean into kids' lives who don't have active grandparents or parents in the church to keep the conversations that started in church alive every single day. That is generational discipleship as preached from Deuteronomy 6, so to speak.
That's right. That's good. Ron, now your ministry at Randall House, you are passionate about this whole idea of church-parent partnership, about Deuteronomy 6, generational discipleship, family ministry. You have a conference called the D6 Conference, which is one of the finest family ministry conferences that exist. You write books on this. You have curriculum. But can we step back? We have so many people in the community that are brand new at this. They are a new Kidmin leader, a new children's ministry director. And this whole concept, although we say we've been talking about it for a decade, for a lot of these Kidmin leaders that are watching, this is new. This idea of family ministry, generational discipleship, ministry beyond just children's church on Sunday morning. If this concept is really resonating with someone, especially someone that's new, this idea of partnering with mom and dad, it's more than just what I do on Sundays. What would be one or two things that somebody new could do right now to really explore this? I mean, is it a book you recommend? Is it you need to listen to this? You should have this conversation with this person. What would you say to someone that's new, that this is a new concept to them?
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say, keying off how you've set this up so well, Ryan, is when you're new to Kidmin, it's easy to be overwhelmed as a kids minister thinking, man, there's all this responsibility, especially when you're in that first time role in your church and you're trying to learn all the dynamics. I would ask you to never lose that sense of overwhelmness, and make sure that you realize that the parents in your church feel that same overwhelmed anxiety or fear, especially when they're new to your church or they're new Christ followers in that first 1 to 2 years. And so you, as a Kidmin leader, need to spend at least a third of your time ministering to the parents, and not just feeling like 100% of your time is dedicated to Kidmin because that's in your title. As I teach family ministry to master's level students, I have an exercise where I have them write job descriptions at the beginning of the semester and at the end of the semester. And I want to see how those change through what they learn throughout the semester. Almost 80 to 90% of the time, they will define a student minister or a Kidmin leader as one who ministers to students or one who ministers to Kidmin. And so the very first thing I would ask of you is that you figure out ways to mentor and coach the parents of your kids. Number two, if you're able, this is something we are passionate about, Ryan. If you can convince the other ministry leaders in your church to get on a family-aligned teaching plan, that way moms and dads are learning the same lessons that the kids are, then when they're at home, it's a natural connect. And it's easy to bring the Bible into the coaching role when the kids have trouble at school with friends, with sports. The parents are now coming from a biblical admonition rather than, well, I think you should do this, and it might be great advice, but it doesn't build biblical worldview. So spend time with your parents. Consider a biblically aligned, a family generationally aligned curriculum in your church, and then encourage them to be in the Word of God every day in that similar alignment, so conversations can continue to cultivate throughout every day.
Such good words from Ron Hunter. Thank you, Ron. Ron, if someone wants to learn more about the ministry of D6, your curriculum, your conferences, your books, everything that you're doing, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, d6family.com. And I will tell you, Ryan, in short, we have been doing the family aligned curriculum longer than almost any other organization out there with the depth. We are the only one that reaches all ages. We've been doing it since 2004, and there's one other group that's been doing it longer than us. And we've been around longer than that, but that's our family. And we are launching our third major iteration of D6 curriculum this fall. And it is the logo over my shoulder. It's called D6 Every Day. So if you'd like to, just sign on to d6family.com. You can see the links to our conference, the links to our curriculum. You can check out books that are on the subject. One of them, if you're fairly new to it, The DNA of D6 is a really good book. And Recalibrate is another one we just released a few months ago. Would highly recommend.
I love it. Now, Ron, are there any samples of the D6 Every Day yet, or samples coming?
The samples are being loaded now.
Okay.
If they're not up, they're coming almost immediately. We're just finishing those PDFs and getting those up there and letting people see what they look like. Our scope and sequence is up, and so they can see where they're going and know that ahead of time.
Nice. Well, friends, you need to check it out. d6family.com. Ron Hunter, you're a good friend. Thank you, brother, for joining me on the call.
I've enjoyed the time. This has been awesome. Can't wait.
Tell everybody in the D6 family there in your office I said hello. Send them Ryan Frank's love.
You got it.
All right. Thanks, Ron.
See ya.
All right. Hey, friends, go check out d6family.com. I am a huge, huge fan of anything that D6 does. Their books, their curriculum, their conference, their podcast. They just have so many resources to help you as you lead kids and families. Facebook, I'd love to hear from you in the comments right now. How has the face of your family ministry changed or improved during this pandemic? You don't have to write paragraphs, just make it in a couple sentences. Family ministry or generational discipleship prior to COVID, and now that we're going through this, here's how it has changed. Here's how it has improved. Leave a sentence or two in the comment. Podcast listeners, thank you for joining me today. Those of you watching on YouTube, thank you. Those of you on one of the Facebook pages or groups listening or watching right now, thank you as well. Our next guest is Dr. Colleen Derr. Colleen is the president of Wesley Seminary. Colleen wasn't always a seminary president. Were you, Colleen?
No, I wasn't.
Colleen and I first met when Colleen was a kids pastor in Indianapolis.
Yep.
Boy, that seems like that was a long time ago, doesn't it, Colleen?
Yes, you were very young, and I wasn't quite as old back then.
Something like that. Wow. Colleen is a children's ministry champion, and I love it. I always brag whenever I talk about Wesley Seminary. One of the things I always say is that it's being led by an amazing president who was once a children's pastor. And I love that because I know it has really shaped a lot of the programming and the curriculum at the seminary. I mean, I remember one thing that you have, when you came on board at the seminary, you were so involved in creating a master's program for children, youth, and family ministry. And you've always been a great partner with Kids Matter and Kidman Academy and our conference. So thank you for what you do. Colleen, I kind of spilled the beans in saying you were a children's pastor. But for somebody who's never met you, will you tell us a little about your ministry background and what's it look like day to day to be the president of a seminary?
Well, I like to say from children's pastor to seminary president in 7 years.
In 7 years. I love it. I love it.
And yeah, I mean, I remember at one point in my life saying, feeling as if children's ministry, you're around all these other people and you're feeling like, oh, I'm the girl doing children's ministry. And someone said to me, never diminish the role the Lord has given you, because he has given you a valuable role and a valuable voice for this moment. And never any idea that he would use me to be able to lead a seminary, and incredibly blessed by that. Yeah, I spent the first half of my life doing children's ministry, both in local churches, often as a volunteer, an unpaid director for many, many, many years, and did public school education. I was a second grade and fourth grade teacher through a lot of those years. Then had an opportunity to be a part of a church plant. When my husband and I first moved to Indiana, we had a chance to be a part of a church plant, and they needed somebody to lead the children, youth, and family. And so before I jumped into public education in Indiana, I took on that role. So that was really my first vocational role in children's ministry, and was part of that church plant for 15 years, working with the children and the families in that church. And that's when you and I first met, and when I first engaged Ron as well, and became just a huge fan of both of your work and ministry. So helped me, who had been doing it out of what I knew as an educator. But the two of you helped so much bring to me the breadth of what it means for it to not just be educational, but for it to be a ministry. So I thank both of you for being part of my development.
Oh, I love this community. And yeah, but you may not know, KidMin is that Kids Matter HQ and Wesley Seminary and Indiana Wesleyan University are right in the same town.
We are.
So I could jump in my car right now and Colleen be over to your house in about 5 minutes, or be at your office, or you could jump over here. We have the opportunity of serving in a small town in Indiana. How cool is that?
Very cool.
Where I saw on Facebook last night that we're getting a Panda Express. Did you see that?
I have not heard that. I've been excited about a McAllister. So now Panda Express is awesome.
And I heard it. I've been hearing it as a rumor, but I guess that it's actually out on a sign out somewhere. Wow. Panda Express is.
Marion is the up and coming, right?
Now, is McAllister's a definite, or is that just?
I don't know that if that's still. I've heard from somebody who works at McAllister's headquarters, actually, that Marion is on their list.
Man, that'd be nice. Okay.
Yep.
So the next time you're in Marion, if there's a McAllister's, Colleen and I will buy you a sweet tea at McAllister's, because that's one of the best places to get sweet tea. But that's not what we're talking about today. Colleen told me about a year ago, I feel like it was a year ago, that you were working on a book project. Was it a year ago?
Yeah, probably a little more than that.
A little more than that, on communication. And here it is. This is a beautiful book. I was honored to write a little endorsement at the front of the book, which is kind of cool. Ron Hunter, I didn't know Ron Hunter wrote one in there too. We should have talked about that earlier. But she's written this amazing book titled Renewing Communication. Renewing Communication. Colleen, whether we like it or not, whether we feel like we are introverted or extroverted, whether we are comfortable in front of a big group or not, we are all communicating, aren't we? If we're leaders.
Yes.
Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I had read an article by Keith Drury a number of years ago that the title of which was "The Church Can't Help But Teach," and was captured by that thought that everything we do, everything we say teaches something. And so are we incredibly intentional about that? And then realized as I've processed that everything we do communicates as well. Yep. Yes, verbal communication and the intentionality we need to have behind that. And knowing in this day and age and what is happening, what we see on media and what is happening in our cities and in our churches, how critical for our to be thoughtful about our communication and how it's received by the other. Because communication And teaching is not about me.
Yep.
It's about the other.
Yep.
And so this book is about capturing every moment for intentionality in our communication for the purpose of experiencing transformation, ourselves and the other experiencing transformation.
I love that, because that's such an important part right there that we can miss sometimes. We don't just communicate to pontificate and blah, 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 blah. I mean, we do, but we should. I mean, really, the goal, there is a goal when you're communicating as a leader.
Yeah.
Whenever I communicate, I want the listeners, whoever those listeners are, to do something. I want there to be a transformation. I want there to be a call to action, but you've got to be intentional. Colleen, I want to get to the good news, like what can we do to really have transformational communication? But first, will you just tell us a couple things? Because I know when I look at this book, and I've written books before, I've never written one this thick. Okay. My books are about a fourth of the size of this book. So I know this was a lot of work and a lot of research. As you were putting this together, and from your own life and ministry experience, we're going to get to the what do we do right sometimes, but what do we sometimes do wrong? Like, where do we get it wrong as leaders when we communicate?
Yeah, I think first of all, we start with us. I've got something to say that you need to hear. I've got something that I want to teach you about. And so we start with us, and that's not who we should start with. The other thing I think we get wrong is that we take a canned message and assume no matter who the audience is, no matter who the receiver is, I can say the same thing. If I make sure it's really well articulated, I can say the same thing to no matter what audience, and it's all going to be heard the same way.
That's good. That's true.
And those two are critical errors we make.
They are critical errors. That's exactly right. So if I want to be an effective communicator, whether it's, now these are kidmin leaders primarily watching and listening to this now, whether I'm communicating to kids, whether I'm communicating to my volunteers, whether I'm communicating to my the parents, whether I am communicating to my pastor or my executive pastor or the trustees at the church or whoever I'm communicating to, if I want to really be effective, and I know this is hard to talk about and sum up in 5 minutes because you've written a lot here. What are one or two things I could start doing today to see some transformational communication?
Well, first of all, it starts with you, and you have to be intentional about your own personal transformation. And so living a life that is so intentional and intent on being transformed yourself, and the critical investment that is as children's pastors, and the book is written for children, youth, and family ministry leaders. As we live into those roles, we are incredibly busy people. And the one thing that often suffers is our own personal spiritual life. And that cannot suffer. That has to be the absolute priority for ourselves, is to immerse ourselves, because ultimately it is only the work of the Holy Spirit in us, through our words, through our teaching, and in the lives of the recipients, preparing them, helping them in the middle of it, and helping them continue processing it afterward. It's only the work of the Holy Spirit that does any transforming. And so that is absolutely critical. The other thing is to realize that we have to recognize how we communicate, why do we communicate that way, and who are the people we're communicating to. What do they need to hear from me? Yes. But more importantly, how do they need to hear it from me? And that depends on them. And in the book, I talk about what is their location. What is their location in terms of who they are, their experiences, developmental location, the whole range of ways that you can identify a person's location. That matters in how I say what I say. So starting with them, what do they need to hear in this moment in time? What is the word that is needed?
Yeah.
And what is the word the Lord has given me through my own personal devotions? What word is, in order to be able to share with the group that I've been privileged to lead at this moment in time? And then how do they need to hear me say it so that they can actually hear it and they can experience transformation?
And that's good stuff. Don't you think, Colleen, I'm sure if you wrote this book, 20 years ago, pre-Twitter, pre-Twitter, pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook, pre-social media, pre-internet, pre-digital, I'm sure it would look different. As so much of communicating, especially anymore, it's even more than just my lesson on Sunday, my sermon, how I present myself before and after church services when I'm around people. I mean, offline is almost as important anymore as when you're online, isn't it? I mean, we have to be aware of that. You talk about that in the book?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I started the book when I was a faculty member, and then it got on paused when I transitioned to this job for the first year or so. And then I picked it back up, and I had to make a lot of revisions because of this significant change in electronic media and means of communication just in those 3 years. But yes, absolutely. You have a presence, you have a voice that is being heard loud and clear, most of the time in moments that have nothing to do with your actual planned and prepared conversation and communication.
Yeah.
It's in how you carry yourself. It's in what you tweet. It's in what you Instagram post. It's in what you share on Facebook. All of that says and communicates to the listener who you are.
That's right.
And who you are matters in their view in terms of what you're saying, because they hear everything that you say through a filter. And that filter is developed in part by who they assume you are. So when I hear Ryan Frank say something, or when I hear Ron Hunter say something, it's based on this filter that I have created of who the two of you are based on my experience with you.
That's a good point.
And so we have to be so aware. Now, I don't want people to have like social media anxiety overload about it. But I do think that we have to be so much more intentional, critical of ourselves, and thinking, okay, is this going to contribute to the voice that the Lord has given me an opportunity to have? Remember, it's not for your own sake. The Lord has given you a moment in time to have a voice for his work. And is this going to contribute to the good of that? If not, then don't say it. Don't share it. Don't comment on it.
Yeah, that's right. I think one of the best things, Colleen, that's helped me grow as a communicator over the years is finding good communicators and learning from them, whether it's a pastor or an author or someone on social media, and what are they doing and how can I learn from them and imitate their behaviors? Don't you think that's important if we want to grow to be better communicators, that we find people that are doing a great job communicating and literally learn from them?
Absolutely. I mean, and you recognize all of the time, who are the people I enjoy hearing from? What are the podcasts I enjoy watching?
Yeah.
What are the TED Talks I enjoy watching, right? And what is it about those communicators that you find engaging? And, the ministers that when you walk away, you're like, yes, that was really powerful. Why? What was it about what they did? It's so much more often about what they did, how they said it, than necessarily what they said.
Exactly.
And so very critical to continue to realize that and recognize and figure out, okay, you don't want to do something that's completely not you and not natural to you. For instance, I could never not talk without my hands. And so
we had no idea. We couldn't tell. Nope.
If I tried to make myself stop talking without my hands, that would not be natural to me. But are there things that I can pick up and adapt to what's natural for me that can help accentuate my communication to make it even more productive so that the person can actually hear what the Lord has given me to say?
I love it. Who are you? Facebook, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Who are you learning from as a communicator? And what are you learning from them? Let's just learn from each other on that. Leave a comment, and maybe it's someone that you're learning from right now, or like, man, a year ago, I heard this person speak, or I read their book, or I listened to their podcast, or I met this person, and course, a lot of communication we haven't talked about. This is even nonverbal. But I learned this from that person. Leave a comment and let us know. Colleen's book is called Renewing Communication, Spirit-Shaped Approach for Children, Youth, and Families. This is a great book. Community, you need to go over to Amazon and pick it up. Renewing Communication, Spirit-Shaped Approaches for Children, Youth, and Families. I know we're going to talk about this book in the next issue of Kids Matter magazine. I don't know what we're doing with it, but I know Amber Pike has a book coming her way because we're going to do something with it in the next issue of Kids Matter. It's a great book. Colleen, thanks for writing it. Colleen, final question for you. We talked just briefly about Wesley Seminary. Wesley Seminary has a great master's program in youth, children's, family ministry. Do you still have that certificate program? I forget what it's called.
We do, yes. So children, youth, and family, you can pursue just the courses related to just that, or you can jump in and do the whole program. Our programs are all fully online. In fact, we say to people, we want you to stay where you're at and be engaged in the ministry you're at, and let us come alongside you to partner with you in your ministry. And so as you go, you're being equipped and challenged and making application so that your ministry is enriched as you're doing your seminary degree. And you end up at the end of the day with the seminary degree, and that's not too bad.
Yeah, and that's good. And I want to make sure everybody hears that if you participate at Wesley Seminary, Colleen, you're not asking people quit your job and you got to do seminary. I mean, your program is really created for people that have a family, that have a ministry, that have a job. Of course, you're adding on, you're making a commitment, and it's going to be additional time. But you don't have to quit your job at the church to do that.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, don't.
Don't give up your volunteer ministry at the church, or quit your vocational role at the church or a parachurch organization. We have people from across all different kinds of vocations who see what they're called to do. Wherever they've been placed at this moment in time by the Lord, they see it as an opportunity for ministry. And we say, let us come alongside you. You tell us where are your gaps. You tell us where you need strengthened. You tell us where you need encouraged, and we'll guide you in the right program and the right courses to enrich you so that your ministry can be enriched.
I love it. And one other thing I want to mention about Wesley Seminary, because I think it's so neat. Although Wesley Seminary is a seminary of the Wesleyan Church, it's not just Wesleyan students are part of the seminary.
No, we have students from over 65 different denominations.
That's crazy.
So 500 students, 65 different denominations, 29 countries of the world. And right now, 2 languages, English, and everything is also offered fully in Spanish.
I love that. It's Colleen Derr, wesleyseminary.org. That's the website?
Yes, or seminary.indwes.edu.
Perfect. Andy will drop those links into the comments. Colleen, thanks for joining me in the coffee chat. I said it was going to be 15 minutes. We've been talking like 25. I hope you're good with that.
It's been great. And next time, get Ron and I together.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yes.
Colleen, thank you for championing children's ministry so well. You're a good friend.
It's a joy.
All right. Take care, Colleen. Thanks so much. Yep.
Bye-bye.
All right. Colleen's book, Renewing Communication. Go check it out on Amazon. Check out Wesley Seminary as well. Seminary.indwes.edu. Coffee chat. We've had a great chat. Thank you for joining me today. Those of you that are joining me late, you missed the super fun game that I shared at the very beginning. I get excited about a lot of the downloads that hit Kids Matter. I'm super, super excited about this one here. This one's only been on the site for about 24 hours. It's a game that was created by a children's pastor named Andrew for his church in Carrollton, Georgia. He said, "Do you think it would be a good game for Kids Matter? My girls are addicted to this." How it works. The name of the game, look the other way. The kids have to do the opposite of what the voice on the screen says to do. If the voice on the screen says look up, they look down. If the voice on the screen says look down, they look up. And every round, there are 7 rounds, they get faster. Check it out.
Right, down, up, down.
That's it. How fun is that? 7 rounds. Every round gets faster. This is a great way to bring the energy up in your room. It's called Look the Other Way at kidsmatter.com. Make sure when you're there to check out Global Kidmin Day happening on Saturday, August 8th. I would love for your church to participate. This is a great way to get your volunteers back on board to reignite that passion and that energy for children's ministry. I've got a great lineup of speakers. August the 8th. Check it out, globalkidminday.com. And of course, there's all kinds of downloads on here for you to check out. If you really get into the downloads at kidsmatter.com, it makes sense to go pro because you get a magazine subscription. You get free downloads every month, and you get mentorship with yours truly, Ryan Frank. It's all at kidsmatter.com. Coffee Chat, it's been a great day. Thanks for being with me. We will see you tomorrow at the same time.